You're gonna lose this time. I guess we'll see. 2 lines. Delivered in a dark tree line, over in about 4 seconds, and it might be the single most important exchange in 4 seasons of this show. Go back and actually listen to how Sophia says that second line. That is not the confidence of something that's run this exact loop 100 times and already knows the ending. That's rattled. And if the man in yellow, the thing that killed Jim without blinking, the thing that's been running this town's misery since before Boyd Stevens was born, sounds rattled, we need to talk about why. Because I don't think the season 4 finale was an ending. I think it was the first time in this show's entire run that the villain doesn't know what happens next either. 4 seasons of watching this town eat people and reset. 4 seasons of the rules don't apply to it. And then one exchange, thrown away in the last 90 seconds of the year, quietly tells us the thing running this whole operation might actually be losing its grip on the outcome. So let's get into exactly what Season 4 confirmed, what it quietly buried, and what Endgame actually means now that we know Season 5 is the last one. Before the theories, the accounting. If a tree falls in the forest, moves fast, and it's easy to lose track of what's permanent. 2 people are dead. Elgin spends the whole season getting worked over by a dead woman in a kimono, finally has the one good instinct of his entire arc. He turns down the man in yellow's deal, and it kills him anyway, mid-prayer. Mari dies in the clinic when the talisman comes down during the earthquake, and Smiley walks in like he owns the place. But bodies aren't the real damage. The real damage is structural. The bottle tree, whatever's been holding this ecosystem in balance for who knows how many cycles, is gone. Every talisman in town has been pulled and dumped in the hollow of the faraway tree, the exact tree Boyd originally found them in. Sit with that detail, and the sky itself broke. Day to night, on command, mid-afternoon. That's not a monster problem. That's a rules problem. 3.5 seasons taught us 3 laws. Talismans work, light works, don't cross the tree line. Season 4 revoked all 3 in about 6 minutes of screen time, and Henry very nearly adds a 3rd body to that count from the inside. He's convinced himself the whole town is a dream, decides the fix is to kill his own son Victor and wake up. And it's only Ethan wandering in at the wrong, or right, moment that stops him. Which matters because it's the show putting the "none of this is real" theory in the mouth of a man about to commit murder over it. That's not subtle. That's the writers telling you exactly how dangerous that particular reading of the show actually is. Now the reveal everyone's actually here for. Sophia isn't a pastor's daughter who got unlucky. Sophia is the man in yellow and has been since roughly the day she showed up. Here's why this is bigger than a twist. It finally gives us a mechanism. The man in yellow can only wear the dead. Elgin finds a decades-old photograph of a woman who is unmistakably Sophia, which means whoever she really was, she died in this town a long time ago. And whatever's wearing her face has been recycling bodies ever since. That retroactively answers a question people have been asking since Season 1. How does this thing walk around in daylight, unaffected by the one rule that governs literally every other creature in the woods? It's not breaking the light rule. It was never a night walker. It's something else, hiding in plain sight inside people we already buried. Which means I have to talk about the Randall theory, because for 2 years half this fandom's been convinced Randall was being groomed into the man in yellow. The cicadas, the scar, the fact the monsters keep sparing him for no clear reason. Sophia's reveal doesn't kill that theory. It reframes it. If the man in yellow's whole method is possessing the recently dead, Randall becomes the man in yellow was never really about Randall being special. It's about Randall being a candidate. The actual question isn't whether Randall is the man in yellow. It's how many hosts this thing has burned through and whether Boyd is next in line. Watch how deliberately this season frames Boyd's hand shaking. That's not just Harold Perrineau doing subtle physical acting for fun. There's also an older theory this reveal quietly supports instead of killing, that the man in yellow used to be a 1950s game show host. It sounds like a joke until you remember every nightwalker in these woods is dressed like it wandered off a black and white broadcast. A milkman, a bride, a cheerleader, a mechanic, and the voice on the radio back in Season 1 had that same showman cadence. A being that's been recycling dead bodies for decades doesn't have one fixed origin point, but its taste is fixed, and its taste is stuck somewhere around 1958. That's the kind of detail this show plants and never explains out loud because it doesn't have to. The other half of that closing scene is the boy in white. And Season 4 finally answers the only question that's mattered about him. Whose side is he actually on? For 3 seasons, the show kept him deliberately ambiguous. He shows up to Ethan, to Victor, to Tabitha, drops one cryptic line, vanishes, and every time the fandom splits on whether he's guiding these people or luring them somewhere worse. The finale ends that debate. He tries to stop Victor from letting them pull the bottle tree. He's visibly unhappy the talismans got tossed. His last line of the season? They have the bones. Plays like a man checking a scoreboard for his own team. He's not neutral. He's just severely limited in what he's allowed to do about it. That limitation is the actually interesting part. He can't do what Sophia does. He can't put on a body and walk into Colony House and fix things directly. All he gets is the occasional appearance to somebody able to perceive him, which notably has so far only been Victor and Tabitha, the two characters most entangled in this town's oldest secrets. That's not coincidence, that's a filter. Whatever the boy in white is, he can only reach people who are already partway open to whatever he represents. Which, if you've been tracking Victor's arc since season 1, tells you exactly why he's one of the two. This is a man who has outlasted essentially every other resident we know of, carrying guilt over his little brother's death that the show has never let him fully explain away. When Boyd asks reasonably why the boy in white doesn't just appear to everyone and spell it out, Victor's answer is basically, it doesn't work that way. And I think that's the most honest line in the finale. The boy in white isn't withholding information out of cruelty. He's bound by the same ritual logic Sophia keeps talking about. Guidance has to come through the people already carrying the weight, not a town-wide announcement, now the one that actually hurt. Since giving birth to Smiley back in season 3, Fatima has been quietly losing her humanity in ways the show only half let us notice. The visions, the way she senses the creatures before anyone else does. The finale finishes that arc in the worst possible way. Cornered in the tunnels, she tells Ellis to remember who she used to be, and turns. Claws, contorted face, full transformation, no cutaway. And Smiley, the monster she gave birth to, looks at her mid-fight and calls her mother. Sit with that, because it answers something the show's been dancing around since the pilot, where the Nightwalkers actually come from. If Smiley calls Fatima mother the moment she becomes exactly what he is, that's the show telling you the monsters were never a separate species that's always lived in these woods. They're made. Specifically, they're made out of people this town chews up and repurposes, generation after generation. Which reframes every single Nightwalker we've seen since episode 1 as somebody's Fatima. Harold Perrineau said in a post-finale interview he almost wished she died instead. Honestly, that's the correct reaction because the show didn't give her a clean death. It gave her the fate this series has always treated as worse than dying, becoming part of the machine that's been killing everyone else. Pega Ghafouri, meanwhile, talked about getting the script and being thrilled the moment she saw where Fatima's arc was headed, which tells you everything about how this show operates. The actors playing the horror are excited. The characters living inside it are being destroyed. That gap is the whole show in miniature. Here's the update I think matters more than this fandom is currently treating it. Ahead of this season, John Griffin and Jeff Pinkner went on record and killed 3 theories at once. Not purgatory, not a dream, nobody here is already dead. I want to explain why that's a bigger deal than a fun soundbite. Those 3 theories are the 3 easiest exits for a mystery box show that's run out of runway. And Pinkner worked on Lost, a show that got dragged for years over the were they dead the whole time reading of its own finale. He knows exactly what this fandom is scared of. Ruling out purgatory and the dream logic in the same breath, this far ahead of the actual ending, isn't fan service. It's the writers telling you the real answer has to be something you could point to. On a map, in a mythology book, under a microscope, grounded, which tracks with the ritual language Sophia's been using all season. This place is built on ritual, and how you do something matters as much as what you do. That's not afterlife metaphor. That's old world folklore and sacrifice dressed up as a small American town. In the same conversation, Pinkner addressed the Lost comparisons directly instead of dodging them. And his position is basically that the two shows share genre DNA, the same producers, the same instinct for a slow burn mystery, but not the same endgame logic. Fair or not, that's a promise he's making publicly, on the record, with his name attached right before the final season. Worth remembering the next time somebody in the comments says, "This is just Lost again." Which brings me to the thread stitching all of this together, and it's been sitting in plain sight since season 3. Jade and Tabitha are the reincarnations of Christopher and Miranda, earlier residents who, presumably, attempted something very close to what Jade and Tabitha just tried, and lost. That's not a throwaway twist. That's the show telling you this exact play, dig up the bones, break the ritual, has happened before, maybe many times, and every single time it's ended with somebody like Christopher and Miranda on the losing side. Now, lay the finale's final exchange over that pattern. You're gonna lose this time. Not you're gonna lose, full stop. This time. That phrasing only makes sense if there have been other times, and if the man in yellow has, until now, always been right. Which means the real headline of the season 4 finale isn't "the townspeople got the bones." It's that for the first time across however many cycles this thing has been running, the losing side flipped a variable that's never been flipped before. That's why Sophia sounds scared in that final scene. Not because losing this one fight is new to the character, but because losing, period, is new. Remember Kenny telling Jade, all the way back in season 1, that the town doesn't sit at a fixed location. It moves. Combine that with the map in Boyd's office showing people arriving from all over the country, with no two people ever arriving from the same road. A location with no fixed coordinates that's been running the exact same losing ritual on a rotating cast of strangers for generations isn't a haunted town. It's a machine. And every mechanism eventually has a part that wears out. I think this cycle is that worn part, which is exactly the note the final season is picking up. MGM Plus has confirmed it. Filming started this month, July 6, back in Nova Scotia, wrapping late November, and Pinkner has already called that closing forest scene the start of the Endgame, the thing they pitched this entire show around from day one. Worth pausing on how big this show has actually gotten before we close out, because it's earned the acknowledgement. Season 4 debuted with a genuinely rare perfect critic score, broke MGM Plus's own audience record after a single episode, and for a stretch was outperforming genre giants like Stephen King's The Institute and A New Mission, impossible release in daily digital viewership. During finale week, it landed as one of the most talked about shows online, period, not just in the horror lane. 10 episodes, one new series regular in Julia Doyle, a shoot that already wrapped back in November, and now a 5th and final run currently filming right now this month. 4 years in, this stopped being a cult horror show that Lost fans stumbled onto by accident. It's appointment television now. If you've been here since the pilot, you've earned the right to be smug about that. So here's my real read on where this ends, and I want to be upfront. This is a theory, not a leak. Sophia's own words are the tell. Having the bones isn't the same as knowing the ritual. How you do something is as important as what you do. Jade and Tabitha have the ingredients. They almost certainly don't have the instructions, because if they did, the man in yellow wouldn't have needed to sabotage a rope ladder to buy himself time at all. My money's on Julie. Her storywalking has been criminally underused since it was introduced, and it's the one tool this show has that can actually reach backward into a previous cycle and pull out the how, not just the what. If season 5 really is the endgame, I think it ends with Julie walking back into Christopher and Miranda's cycle to find out exactly what they got wrong, and finding out it was never the bones they were missing. It was the choreography. That's where I'm landing until episode 1 drops. If you've got a read on the boy in white's limits, or you think I'm wrong about Julie, the comments are open and I will actually get in there and argue with you.